My name is Dr. Nathanial Hearne. I'd like to welcome you to the Igniting Next Generation Virtual Youth Summit, and I'm excited about presenting to you. I would like to speak on the topic of how to make dreams come true. Your dreams come from God, and God wants you to take your dreams and turn them into goals, and then He wants you to take those goals and turn them into reality. Now, God has a requirement of you, and if He's going to help you live your dreams, and that is you have to want it. If you want it, there's nothing impossible for you. At age 13 in the 7th grade, I had a dream that I wanted to achieve. I wanted to be a science teacher and a coach. That dream was inspired by my two teachers, my 7th grade science teacher and my 7th grade football coach. There was just one problem with me achieving that dream, is that I grew up in poverty. I'm going to take a second here and share my screen with you, because I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you. I'm a middle child of 8 siblings. It would have been 9. My youngest brother died at birth. My father worked as an attendant at a humble full-service station on Main Street in that small West Texas community that I grew up in. He pumped gas, he fixed flats, he washed cars the majority of his life. My mother, she worked as a domestic, and that means she cleaned houses for a living. She cleaned, she cooked, she washed, and she did that the majority of her life. The 10 of us, including my mom and my dad, we lived in a 3-room house, not bedroom, a 3-room house that sit on cinder blocks. There was no hot water and no indoor bath facility in that home. Whenever my mom readied us to take a bath, she would heat the water up on the stove and pour it into a number 3-foot tub. Now, I know you guys are not familiar with a number. You've never seen a number 3-foot tub, so this is a teaching moment for you. If you look just above my sister's head on the side of that house we grew up in, that is a number 3-foot tub. The majority of the clothes that I wore came from the homes my mom cleaned. She would often have to mend those clothes to get them ready for me to wear to school. I have on my Sunday best. I've just finished the worship service with my aunt. And if I could blow that picture up IMAX, and you know what I mean by IMAX, like in the theaters when you go, make it big, you could see the holes in the knees of those jeans I have on. And if I could digitize it and make it 3D, where I could spin it around so you could see the backside of that shirt, you can see holes in the elbows of that shirt, iron-on patches that my mom put on. My older brother, who is 4 years older than I, he would wake me up on many occasions on Saturdays. And we would scour the neighborhood alleys. We would go through the trash cans looking for the thickest and the best cardboard we could find, so I could cut it out and put it in the soles of our shoes to keep the heat of the pavement out in the summer, the water out when it rained, the cold out in the winter, because our father didn't have the money to buy shoes on a regular basis. I remember my elementary school days vividly. That's when I decided that I was going to drop out of school in elementary. My mom would line us up and she'd give us ground meat and bread, bologna sandwich, and a brown paper sack and 2 cents for a quart of milk. I used to walk to school every day with holes in my shoes, holes in my clothes, and carrying that bologna sandwich and that brown paper sack. And it was very difficult for me. What made school so difficult for me and want me to drop out was that whenever I lined up to go to recess, or I lined up to go to the library, or I lined up to go to lunch, I would hear people say, "Those are my clothes. Those are my shoes." It was very difficult for me, and it left me with very low self-esteem. And that low self-esteem reflected in all my report cards in elementary school. I had my report cards were filled with C's, D's, and F's. More D's and F's than anything else. I don't ever remember making an A in elementary school. At the end of my 6th grade year, I decided I had had enough of the embarrassment. So I just ran home after school and I told my mom I didn't like school. I hate school. I'm never going back. But my parents, they were not the kind to let me just quit school. So I started 7th grade And it started out the same way. I still had the holes in my clothes. I still had the bologna sandwich and still had the holes in my shoes. But then I walked into Mr. Clive Haight's 5th period science class, and he welcomed me. He shook my hand. He put his arm around me. He walked me into class, and he set me on the front row. Now, that was a very fearful experience for me because I'd never been on the front row, because you guys know what happened on the front row. You have to be smart. You have to answer questions, and I had none of that. But Mr. Haight was a master motivator. He was a master teacher. He was a master character developer. And in a short period of time, he would alleviate all my fears. And in his class is where I made my first A. And not only did I make an A in his class, he made me his lab assistant. And I had on a white lab coat very similar to his doing the labs. And it just completely turned my world around. The second thing that happened to me to inspire me to be a football coach was my 7th grade football coach, Coach Mark Wallace. I went out for football, and he came out and he shook my hand and said he'd heard some wonderful things about me. He heard I was a great athlete, and he was going to put me on his team, and that we're going to have a lot of fun winning football games. I had never been coached like that before. He made me a starting running back on offense, a starting cornerback on defense. He never took me off the field. And he had these life-impacting things he was doing. At one time in the locker room, he came over to me and he put his hand on my shoulder and he looked down at me. And he said, "Hearne, those holes in your clothes, those holes in your shoes, you carrying that bologna sandwich every day is not an indication of the man you're going to become." I couldn't believe he was talking to me, but he really was. And it turned my life around. And from that point on, 13 years old, I decided that I was going to be a science teacher and a football coach, and nothing was going to stop me. All the obstacles, all the hard times, all the setbacks would not stop me, because you remember what I said? I wanted it. I have a picture of a football team. Coach put me on the football team, had a great time. I transitioned from there to high school. And in high school, because of what they were doing with me, Coach Wallace and Mr. Haight, I made the honor roll. I made straight A's. And then I graduated from high school. I received an academic athletic scholarship to college. Went to college and graduated in 4 years. And then I went back to the area I grew up in, and I taught science and I coached football for 35 years in the public school system. Now, 10 of those years that I coached football was spent at Permian High School. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, but I want to tell you it was a very prolific program in Texas football. We were named national champions twice. We won 6 state championships. The times that I coached there from 1980 to 1989, we won more football games than any other high school in the state of Texas, and they named us the team of the decade. Also, during my time coaching at the school, there was a book written about the guys that I coached, the teams that I coached. That book was a New York Times top selling seller, and it was Friday Night Lights. And they took that book and they turned it into a top 10 best-selling movie, Friday Night Lights. And they took that movie and they turned it into an Emmy Award-winning television series, Friday Night Lights. Now, all of this came about because 2 teachers decided to help me do things that I never dreamed possible. And they empowered me to do things that I never thought were possible. The main thing that I want to share with you in making your dreams come true is what I said in the very beginning. You have to want it. Now, I have some questions at the end that I want you to answer. And I'm excited about your time at this Igniting Next Generation Virtual Youth Summit. Have a great time, and I look forward to hearing from you.